On today's episode of High Spots and Cheap Pops, we review Monday Night Raw for January 24th, 2022, the go-home episode for the Royal Rumble this Saturday night, January 29th, with, of course, we're going to have one of the big matches, Brock Lesnar finally facing on Bobby Lashley, two of the most dominant forces in WWE the last 2 decades. And we had ourselves a little weigh-in, and unfortunately, folks, the big show was not available. Sad. Show opened with Graves and Adam Pearce and a few forgettable WWE officials in the middle of the ring, and Bobby Lashley was announced. One thing to notice is Bobby Lashley is clearly taking the match much more serious than Brock. They were showing footage of Lashley looking determined and training, but Brock came out. He was wearing a cowboy hat after Paul Heyman introduced him. And he also had a nice, cute little braided ponytail. This Brock Lesnar can still kill you, but it's just a little cuter. Apparently, Corey Graves had an issue with Brock's attire, saying that Brock's cowboy outfit did not remind him of appropriate clothes for a weigh-in. And Brock asked, Mr. Graves, would you like me to get naked? Let's just move along with the weigh-in. Basically saying, tread lightly, pal. Lashley weighed in at 273 pounds, and luckily they didn't. And MVP repeated 273 pounds and talked Bobby up, saying that Brock Lesnar has no idea what he's in for, and 273 pounds of God, fighting will, and all that. So that was cool. When it was time for Brock Lesnar was then asked to get on the scale, and this time, Corey Graves once again said, you might want to take some of your clothes off for this to be official. And Lesnar took off his hat and gave it to Paul, leaving his coat on and every other piece of clothing. Clearly not giving a flying shit on what Corey Graves thinks or says. Lashley increasingly getting annoyed because Brock Lesnar wasn't taking him seriously. So Lashley gets on the mic and he's pissed. He says, this will be the shortest title reign of your entire career. And that's not a prediction, that's a spoiler. I saw what you did there, Bobby Lashley. Brock Lesnar once again made fun of Bobby Lashley, saying, you know what, Bobby, you are going to win. Bobby is going to win with the Hurt Lock and become the new WWE champion. And his name is Bobby who? Once again, completely disrespecting Bobby Lashley. The one thing that kind of threw me off, Bobby Lashley comes down high-fiving fans. So is Bobby Lashley a tweener now, or is he a babyface? I don't know. I have no idea. They have booked him. He's still dominant, don't get me wrong, but they've booked him where I don't know what's going on, and I'm not really sure who to root for here. I like Brock Lesnar. He's a BMFer right now, so I hope he wins, but I'm not sure. But we're going to have our Royal Rumble predictions a little bit later on in the week. Moving on, folks, we find ourselves highlight of Bianca Belair winning both the Royal Rumble and the main event at WrestleMania last year. And that would set us up for Bianca Belair versus Queen Zelina. Well, since Bianca got the package, you wouldn't think she's going to be winning, right? I was right. Bianca wins with a KOD at the end of the match. Good entertaining match. I like what Queen Zelina is doing, and the match went fairly long as well. After the last week or so of WWE programming, I'm sure a lot of people will be happy that the women got a lot of time. Then we go to highlights from Kevin Owens and beating Damian Priest last week. And then Kevin Owens was interviewed by the European Kevin backstage, and he asked Kevin about feigning the injury, and that's a way to get the win. Kevin Owens said he's just going to keep fighting, and that's what Kevin Owens just said he's going to keep on fighting until he wins the United States champion. He brought up his catchphrase in the back of his shirt about how he keeps fighting. Cool. So they wrestle again. Damian Priest and Kevin Owens wrestle one more time, and this is yet another rematch. And I'm not exaggerating. This was the 5th rematch on WWE programming of a match we've seen over the last couple weeks. Matches we've seen in January. This was the 5th one on WWE programming since last SmackDown and this Monday Night Raw. That is something that's been a problem over and over and over again. You have enough people. Can we get some decent fucking matches? And not the same matches over and over. And the problem with this is that, guess what? Damian came out again. So Kevin Owens was disqualified. And all that happened was he was kicking him in the corner. The same thing with Natalya last Friday night. That is such a stupid finish. Oh, he lost his shit, just kept on kicking him. And then once he gets disqualified, he leaves. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not vibing with this. I don't think Damian Priest, a very talented wrestler, is being booked correctly. He's being booked dominant, but I don't know. First of all, we've seen this before. This kind of shtick. And not only that, you're booking him the same exact way you booked him with Ziggler. Now, Kevin Owens might win. He's a little bit of a bigger star than Ziggler. But it just don't like this booking. After the match was over, after Damian Priest was disqualified for not letting Kevin Owens out of the corner and continuously kicking him, so I guess we're going to get another Kevin Owens-Damian Priest match for another title match. And maybe they'll have another stipulation this time because it's different because of the disqualification. Who knows? But it's the same thing, and they're using two really talented wrestlers for that. So, sorry. I've been trying to be much more positive about WWE recently, but this episode was not great. Jimmy Smith then said former tag team champions aren't getting along, and he didn't introduce the team. So Corey Graves, blatantly as he does often when one of his peers fucks up, he said, "Well, we're always done with the women's tag team champions." And they went into the Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ash storyline, giving highlights on that. And that set up what was going to be a 6-man women's tag match between Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Dana Brooke, Nikki Ash, Carmella, and Tamina. All 6 women cut promos how they're going to win the Royal Rumble. Backstage segments recorded. There was an NXT commercial. This is something to worry. This is something to mention. Walter is now going to be called Gunther, but just Gunther. The Stark was taken out. So he is Gunther now. So those of us who thought that the name change wasn't happening, no. The name change is happening. It's just not going to include Stark, which obviously would be the Nazi. That made it better. 6-man tag match. Ripley tapped out Carmella at the finish, but to continue the story with Nikki Ash, the almost superhero had a cheap shot at the end of the match and ran out smiling. Ripley was like, "Oh, I'm going to get her." I didn't give a shit about that match. Now, great piece of programming here. The Alpha Academy Academic Challenge between Alpha Academy and RK Bro. Chad Gable, in a brilliant promo, explained that his academic challenge is just part of one of 3 events. He kept on saying triad, and he realized that people in Ohio are dumb as shit. So he decided to say that means 3 people. Triad means 3. Master Gable is really becoming one of the best parts of WWE television every single week. He is obviously very reminiscent of Kurt Angle in the way he cuts a promo, the way he wrestles. Everything is so similar to Kurt Angle. However, he's his own. I think people can't say he's a ripoff of Kurt Angle. I think he's doing his own shtick. But, hey, look, getting complimented to Kurt Angle, who to me is one of the top 10 wrestlers of all time, that's not a bad thing. And after he cuts his promo, down comes RK Bro with another sensational pop. And I'll tell you what, I am so happy that RK Bro has not been broken up yet. I think a lot of us thought they were going to be broken up, ready for WrestleMania. This is such a popular over gimmick. Randy Orton is clearly having one of the best times of his career. There's no reason to break this team up yet. So I hope they don't. And I hope they get their titles back. And I hope they defend them at WrestleMania. Or they win them at WrestleMania, one or the other. So it was announced at that point in time there was going to be a spelling bee. Everyone loves a spelling bee. Otis got his first question right, which was emmental, which is a type of cheese similar to Swiss. Thank you, WWE. And thank you, Kevin, European Kevin, because guess what? I didn't know that. I didn't know it. I mean, I rarely learn something new on WWE program, and I did this time, so I appreciate it. Emmental. Type of cheese similar to Swiss with holes in it. Have you had emmental? Leave us a note in the comments. Have you had emmental cheese? Have you? Riddle was next, and his word was calibration, and this was absolutely great. Every time Matt Riddle, they're letting him play this stoner character, which is great. And Riddle said, "Can you use it in a sentence?" After it was used in a sentence, he said, "Can you use it using letters?" And so trying to get him to spell it, he couldn't do it. Obviously, European Kevin said, "No, you got to spell it." And then Riddle said, "Oh, wait, I have to calibrate my scale before I weigh stuff at home." Crowd loves the weed jokes. I love the weed jokes. Give me more weed jokes. In fact, I'm going to smoke a blunt as soon as I'm done. Love you, Riddle. Riddle gets calibration right, or calibrate right, which why wouldn't he? And then Gable got disillusion. Now, unfortunately, he misheard him and thought that European Kevin said dissolution, like if you're going to dissolve something. So Gable got his question wrong because he spelled DISSOLUTION instead of disillusion, which is DISILLUSION. It's spelled right there. That's the only reason I know that. Orton was then given the word dumbbell. He spelled it correctly. And RK Bro wins the first of the triad, wins the very first event. And Randy Orton was tired of hearing Chad Gable complain about his team's victory, or Chad Gable's team's loss and Randy's team's victory. And Randy challenged him to a match, and yet another fucking rematch. How many times have we seen Gable and Orton in some kind of match over the last 2 months? But it happened again. But hey, these two guys are two of the best in the business. It was a good match. Match culminated. Matt Riddle hit Otis with a scooter on the outside after they got in a little bit of a tussle. Orton was inside the ring, and he reversed ankle lock by Gable, pushed him into the corner. He comes back out right into an RKO out of nowhere. And then it was announced they're going to have a good old-fashioned scooter race next week. You know what? I know this sounds stupid, and I think if it was any other people involved in the storyline, this would be terrible, but this is hilarious. All four guys are nailing it. Four great wrestlers. You gotta love what's going on right now with RK Bro and Alpha Academy. And considering that we have shit all over the tag team division for so long, it's good to see a new tag team kind of with RK Bro. Alpha Academy has done a hell of a job getting themselves over. And I expect them to be a really good tag team for a long time to come. I'm hoping anyway. Who knows? It's WWE, right? Alexa Bliss still talking to a shrink. And it sucks, but when I was watching it, it was only 30 seconds. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. At least we're not going to sit through one of those again. Then they go to commercial. They come back, and she's still talking to the fucking doctor. It really hurt my soul. I'm not going to lie to you people. It really hurt my soul. So Alexa is now giving a little bit of a backstory on Lily. Lily, who we didn't hear anything about. The first 6 years of her career, 7 years of her career when she was a goddess. Now she's a whack job and is apparently has been somewhat impacted by this doll since she was 6 years old. But Lily obviously is a figure that helps her when people are bullying her. Wasn't Alexa like the biggest bitch on the planet the first 5 years? I don't know. I love her. She's probably my favorite wrestler in WWE, women wrestler in WWE. But I don't like this. Anyways, we skip over on to highlights of Austin Theory's success as of late, and obviously the building of him and Vince McMahon's relationship. A backstage segment with Vince McMahon and Austin Theory. And Austin Theory said he was going to win the Royal Rumble and hinted that Vince should give him a good number, like 26 or 27. Vince seemed to know it and told him he will have to fight AJ Styles, who I have no idea if he's a babyface or a heel yet, but I think we're going to find out tonight. I guess he's a babyface, considering Owens is a heel too. That turn and that breakup of that tag team was so fucking bad. It was a disaster. Absolute, unmitigated disaster. And essentially you wasted AJ Styles, the best wrestler in your company. You wasted him for a year and a half. Becky Lynch. Oh, by the way, AJ wins clean going over, so AJ is back. Hopefully they can have him build some momentum into WrestleMania, something with a little bit more substance. Maybe he's going to feud with Austin Theory, but of course, as we know, we hear a lot of rumors that Shane O'Mac is going to make his WrestleMania return to face Austin Theory. I guess they're going to work something in with Vince. Give Vince credit. He's actually sounded a lot better on television the last couple of weeks. Got to give him credit. He hasn't embarrassed himself quite as bad. So there we go. Becky Lynch in a face-to-face backstage interview with Doudrop. I just don't like big-time Bex in a character. She's good at what she does. She's a great sports entertainer. I don't know if she's a professional wrestler anymore. Doudrop did not get much time. It was big-time Bex. She got about 80% of the promo time. Doudrop, when she was given an opportunity to talk, she said some cool things, but I couldn't really understand her because of her accent. Oh, well, I do not. There is no chance. There is no chance in blue hell Doudrop walks out of the Royal Rumble as the women's champion. This match is doing absolutely nothing for me. I do like Doudrop, but I don't give a shit about this feud or this match. Thank you. Ray and Dominic Mysterio backstage talking about the new game, WWE 2K22, that Rey Mysterio is now the only one of, I think, 4 or 5 people to be on the cover twice. And they also showed highlights of him eliminating his son last week, throwing him over the top ropes after a match. What's the point of this? What's the point of people throwing each other over the fucking top rope? Johnny Knoxville's doing it left and right. Ray's doing it to his kid. So at the end of their match, they had a match with the Street Profits. And the Mysterios won in a nice little way. After the match, Dominic went to toss his father over for revenge from last week, but Ray turned it into a head scissors, flipped Dominic over. Dominic's going to eliminate his father at the Royal Rumble, maybe cause a rift. And honestly, I think Dominic should turn heel and beat the shit out of his father and his fucking career. Fuck you, Greg. I'm just kidding. I love Ray. Just kidding, guys. So after Rey Mysterio dumps out his son, the Street Profits come back in. Montez Ford then throws out Rey Mysterio. Be like, what's up, fam? Everyone's all happy about it, joking around. And then my man Angelo Dawkins throws out his partner, Montez Ford. Remember, hey, I had to do it, fam. I had to do it. All good. Then the Dirty Dogs come in and throw out Dawkins. And everyone's all jollies, but everyone else is getting thrown out. But the Dirty Dogs throw people out, and all of a sudden, World War III. It's just stupid. And they were highlighting having 6 men wrestle in the ring at the same time to kind of preview what a Royal Rumble looks like. Been happening for 30 or 40 years. Anytime that you preempt, you are doing an advertisement or building of a show. So I don't know. I didn't like this segment, especially considering the talent involved, but what have you. Then they show highlights of Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and this storyline culminating. And I'll tell you one thing that's been missed about the storyline, because that's saying all the right things. But one thing's been missed is their battles with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. And maybe they're staying away because one of those main events with Brock Lesnar, there was a boring chant, and it was one of the top 2 or 3 worst main events in the history of WrestleMania. And it was, of course, the one culminating with, at the end of the match, in the backstage, Lesnar threw the World Championship or the Universal Championship at Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon called him an asshole. That's what Roman and Brock have already done at WrestleMania. Seth, on the other hand, has beaten Brock one-on-one, and also, don't forget, he pinned Roman when he interjected himself, cashing his money in the bank at WrestleMania 31, pinning Roman Reigns. In fact, the biggest thing Seth could say is every time he's been in a WrestleMania main event or a WrestleMania match with Brock Lesnar, he's walked out champion. And every time Roman has, he's walked out with his shoulders pinned for a 3. Something to keep in mind there. They have not brought that part up, but they might not want to revisit the fact that their main event at WrestleMania was just cascaded with boring chants toward the end of it. And in 15 spears later and 15 F5s later, they finally mercifully ended the match. That was a shitty match. That was a no-nothing match. Jesus Christ. Hey, they're going to run it back, it looks like. Great. Anyway, Seth speaks of having Roman's number, and he announces he will be on SmackDown this Friday, which is good because they didn't do any build for Roman and Reigns. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. They didn't do any build at all for those 2 guys on this particular match. And they had very little build adding to the Lesnar-Lashley match either. I thought this was a really miserable go-home show. And now it's time for the main event segment. The go-home segment. The go-home segment on Monday Night Raw, which used to be your flagship show. It was a Maryse celebration. The legend, Maryse. I guess she's as much a legend as Summer Rae. So we got to give this woman her own main event segment on Raw. Folks, didn't watch it. I turned it off. This is what I assume happened, and I swear to God, I did not see the highlights, so I could be dead wrong. Miz and Maryse came out, talked about how great they were, and talked about how they were, and obnoxiously talked about how they were going to beat Edge and Beth Phoenix. Bragged about how Maryse hit her with a brick last week, whatever, and doing it in this only panache that only Miz, the best sports entertainer ever, could probably do. And then I'm assuming there was some kind of over-the-top gimmick that they made fun of, like, I don't know, big pictures or something, or some kind of stupid over-the-top gimmick. Maybe a picture of Edge and Beth Phoenix looking embarrassing or something embarrassing for them as well, on top of blowing them up. And then Edge and Beth Phoenix came out and beat them up or walked out tall. That's what I'm assuming happened. I didn't watch it. I have not given this feud any of my time. It has annoyed me. It has bothered me. It's been a ripoff. I mean, considering the talent involved, this is a disaster, and I didn't watch it. It's just really a bad feud. It really is. This is terrible. Considering you have two former champions, a guy who, one who was a world champion going during WrestleMania season last year, and the other one main evented WrestleMania last year. It is just a disaster, and nobody cares. Nobody cares except for idiot WWE fans who are all 65 years old. So that's my review of Monday Night Raw. I didn't watch the main event segment. You're not going to get me to watch Maurice and Miz, and this Edge feud is a disaster. I will just make assumptions and report those assumptions, thinking that I'm right because I know WWE is so fucking bad at times. This Raw sucked. Repeats, go home episode, nothing happening, made no sense. Oh, we're dumping people over the top rope again. Becky Lynch just continuing to be this big Bex character, which isn't doing anything for me. We get it, Becky. You can't be called the man anymore, so now you're big time Bex. You're the same fucking character. I don't know. And Lashley and Lesnar was okay, but that should have made him end of the night. Perhaps Lesnar needed to go home early. I don't know. Bad Monday Night Raw going into Royal Rumble. And what's sad is this was the worst Royal Monday Night Raw we've had in a couple weeks. They were really putting on some good episodes, and this was not one of them. Repeated matches, storylines not going anywhere. Nothing was progressed with the exception of maybe Owens and Damian Priest. Did the Maurice, Miz, and Edge and Beth Phoenix thing get progressed at all? No, it didn't. Did Lashley and Lesnar get progressed at all? No, it didn't. Nothing got progressed. This was a 3-hour waste of my fucking time because it was so bad. The 6-man tag with the women was completely fucking pointless. Oh, God. Oh, God. God! This Raw gets a 3.5 out of 10. Fuck you. Anyways, if you like this review, hit the subscribe button. And please follow me on Twitter. We are at HSCP Wrestling. Check out our new website. We're still building it, but it's live, hscpwrestling.com. Again, smash the subscribe button. This is High Spots and Cheap Pops. We'll be back with a feature. We are going to have a feature later on this week. Top 5 scenarios of what could happen during the Royal Rumble matches and the title scenarios. Is it going to be title for title? Is Lashley going to be going into WrestleMania as a champion? Is Seth going into WrestleMania as Universal Champion? We don't know. The Vladdy Dottie, the Impaler, and myself are all getting together, and we're going to bring you those scenarios for you. But this was our Monday Night Raw review for January 24th, 2022. I'm Silicon Steve Alley. Thank you so much for watching High Spots and Cheap Pops. Here endeth the lesson.